Bad news is looming over Nintendo, because if it wasn't already bad enough that Nintendo lost a patent in the Japanese patent office because they basically rejected Nintendo's patent on summoning characters, it seems like Nintendo may actually lose another one, because since the patent was in fact rejected in Japan, there's a good chance that it's going to be looked at again in the US where it was accepted, and it may potentially get rejected in the US patent office as well. So what does that exactly look like? Well, obviously, because of the fact that the actual patent that was rejected by the Japanese office is going to be a big blow to Nintendo, because Nintendo has filed 3 patents to the Japanese patent office, and if the first one was rejected, it gives a little bit of skepticism to the other 2 patents, and they are probably now more likely to fail than they are to succeed, given that that first one has already been rejected by the Japanese patent office, due to, of course, similar features being present in prior art as a result. And Nintendo is now, of course, risking at risk of losing another patent that was approved by the US Patent Office, which obviously should never have been accepted in the first place, but is probably going to get re-examined around summoning characters or creatures to fight alongside the player's characters, after JPO did in fact reject that exact same patent. So crazy to think that there is a possibility that in Pal World, Pal Spheres might actually end up coming back to some extent. So basically, the US Patent Office Director James A. Squires, I feel like he could have gone by Esquires at this point, personally ordered that Nintendo's patent was filed in lieu of the lawsuit against Pal World be re-examined. It seems patents filed by Konami in 2002 and Nintendo 2019 feature very similar mechanics. The patent in Japan was rejected for the very same reason. Both the previous patents teaching the player being allowed to perform a battle in a manual mode and in a simpler automatic mode. It's not very common for the director to directly order such a re-examination. In fact, something like this hasn't happened in over a decade. The timing and reasoning is aligned perfectly with the previous story, so it may be more than just a coincidence that 2 Nintendo patents are questioned within a matter of days. And of course, even though they're technically the same patent, the reason why they consider 2 different ones is because one is, of course, held by the Japanese Patent Office and the other is the US Patent Office. Even though they are a Japanese company, they are still wanting to kind of get their grimy mitts on some of these patents because they want to win the fight against Pal World. They don't want another game to be successful in an area that people will way too closely align the 2 together, because when I look at Pal World, I think of a more successful game, because currently Pokemon is going to sell gangbusters without a shadow of a doubt, but the problem is that Pokemon has in fact been stagnating for a long ass amount of time, and there have been leaks and rumors which I won't get too deep into, but it seems like Pokemon was in fact working on some game that seemingly is also a survival game with Pokemon, similar to that of how Pal World is being depicted, as well as some other side games and side projects that we may end up seeing be worked on later on. And if these games are similar to Pal World, it's going to make Pokemon look a lot worse when we realize that these guys also tried to patent the very tech and game mechanics that they were very much trying to use themselves, very much the idea of rules for thee but not for me type of situation, if any of it comes to pass, which would be very interesting to see. I want to kind of hear your guys' thoughts on this. Like, if you guys saw a Pokemon version of Pal World where instead of pals we had the actual Pokemon, and it was made by Game Freak and published by Nintendo for Switch, not mobile, let's just say it was only for Switch, would you guys be surprised with something like that? Because I'm genuinely curious what people kind of have to say about this, what they think. I really do hope that Nintendo does in fact lose this patent at the US Patent Office, because they absolutely deserve to just lose it all. And of course, that's just not just a setback in the other patents that they've left behind, or rather they filed for in Japan, but also is another setback for Nintendo's hopes for winning the lawsuit against Palworld, which has dragged on for way too damn long. I do agree it's longer than anyone expected, and that these patents feel like a Hail Mary moves by the Japanese developer, and things are not going well for them either. So I do 100% agree with those statements. Things not only don't look good for them, but also it seems like the public the more the public learns about stuff like this, the more they're going to view Nintendo in a negative light, especially given that what we're looking at is basically like legalized retaliation against anyone trying to make a game similar to, or a game that has monster catching elements similar to that of Pokemon. Again, if Pokemon had actually, I'm pretty sure they must have trademarked the phrase gotta catch 'em all, for example, so that no other game could ever use such a phrase, registered trademark or whatever have you, but who the hell knows. It's unclear whether the US Patent and Trademark Office will revoke the previously passed patent. Games phrase of the guys who originally reported this says it's unlikely that the reason for passing it in the first place was that the original examiner felt Nintendo's patent was different enough from prior art. But the question then becomes, if another examiner looks at it, is it possible that it could be similar enough to where it could get rejected? Or is it like, what is the level of differentiation you need to have from prior art? And then, of course, the definition of what the heck is prior art. I would imagine that we're talking about games, in which case you could look at games like Nexamon, for example, which is another Pokemon clone to some extent. Even though you don't really use spheres to fight with them, but like Digimon Story Time Stranger recently came out. That could be used as another example. Hell, Palworld... not Palworld, Pocket Pair, the guys who made Palworld actually made a game that had a similar element to it that was used as very much the evidence that caused the Japanese patent office to in fact reject the patent that was filed by Nintendo for this very situation that Nintendo are now finding themselves in. So it's kind of funny that like one of Pocket Pair's previous titles is now helping with legal issues that they're facing with their current title because of all of the trademark disputes that are going on at the moment. Not just trademark disputes, but also like, yeah, actually, you know what? It's just trademark disputes. I was going to say copyright, but copyright has nothing to do with this situation that's going on here. But with all of that being said, though, I am curious to hear what you guys have to say about this in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. And with all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.